And welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I continue to be Gibbon somehow.
And Gibbon, how is your summer continuing?
Well, we can breathe again. The air quality index has gone back down to safe levels.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
Isn't it a fun time to be alive?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very cool.
I know. I love how on my weather app, it now tells me the air quality. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
that's fun.
Yeah, we've got temperature, humidity, air quality, whether it's raining hellfire. Nice. It's good to know. Yeah, the air quality was so bad where you live that it was actually affecting the air quality where I live, which is impressive considering we are basically a continent apart. We live on opposite ends of the Americas.
It's super bad and it's blowing your way, so get ready for that.
Well, we're also thankfully getting some tropical storms because it's hurricane season, so
maybe those two air fronts will clash. Either they'll cancel each other out, or you're just in for a really bad time.
I'm hoping, climate change just gets so bad every which way that it all just blocks each other and we create the perfect conditions.
I had a friend visiting from out of town this week who's been planning the trip for a while, and coincidentally, she was also the one who lived through all those hurricanes in Puerto Rico a few years back. So she's just getting, the best of climate change.
Well, I'm trying to enjoy the summer regardless. It's August, and I feel like this is where the media and retailers really try to push us away from summer. Like, summer's over. We're focused on autumn now, and meanwhile it's 100 degrees outside. For me, I've always been ignore what society is telling you because they just want to push Christmas trees on you. Enjoy summer. It is summer. Have a pina colada, a margarita. And if you can't make it to the beach because there is a pandemic going on, go to the beach in your mind. And hopefully the conversation can help take you there.
Just pour a bunch of sand on your patio. Don't worry about it.
Oh, look at Gibbon here bragging about the patio. Oh,
it's all I have, okay? Let me have this.
I have a patio.
I have a patio I'm not allowed to put anything on. I can't even put chairs out there. The office management gets mad at me.
Yeah, isn't that great that you're not allowed to use it? All I have is kind of a slab of concrete in the back, and even then they're like, you're not allowed to put plants on it. I'm like,
yeah, that's what I'm generously calling a patio.
Like, why do you give me this slab of concrete if I'm not allowed to use it in a way that would imply some sort of deck or porch or patio?
Animals love it, though. There was a bobcat hanging out the other day. Probably because there's a rabbit warren in the bushes.
I would love to see a bobcat right now. The only wildlife I've got going on are cockroaches. So,
well, yeah, I'm not trading you there.
Living the dream. Support DK Vine on Patreon. DKVine.com/Patreon. Maybe I can do something about my cockroach problem. No, I'm in a good mood. Gib, I'm trying to be in a good mood. Trying to enjoy the summer because I love summer. I love Halloween. I love every season. Don't get me wrong. But summer is always the season that aligns with my mentality, my mood. Spring is actually my favorite season, but summer, I'm very much about the summer life, probably because I grew up with things like Donkey Kong Country and tropical beaches and funky Kongs and what have you. So
I can relate to that.
Yeah. And I'm trying to enjoy the summer all the more this year, Gibbon, because I'm afraid I've received some bad medical news.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I found out that Dr. Mario World is being shut down on October 31st.
Shit.
Yeah, so as much as I said I'm looking forward to Halloween, I do enjoy Halloween, this Halloween will be a bit dark for the Donkey Kong universe.
This is the weirdest Luigi's Mansion announcement. I guess Mario's dying in this one.
Or else Dr. Luigi tried to treat Mario and led to some malpractice And now Luigi is being stripped of his license along with everyone else, down to Dr. Diddy Kong.
Well, to be fair, Luigi knows how to deal with ghosts a lot better than he knows how to deal with live people.
Yeah, that's what you want out of a doctor, right? So
remember, a necromancer is just a doctor who's a little bit late.
Yeah. That would be a good plot for the next Luigi's Mansion. That's why they will never do it. Dr. Mario World, Gibbon, we discussed this back on the Kongversation a couple years back when it became DKU.
We did.
Yeah. And, we generally actually liked it. We liked it a lot better than Mario Kart Tour at the time. And I remember saying that this kind of game, a puzzle game, to me, was much more suited to the mobile experience than something like go-kart racing.
It's a much friendlier consumer experience. You can just play the game. You don't really have to pay attention to any of the microtransactions. Everything is pretty doable. Like, if you want to get, 100% and the best scores on everything, sure, you'll probably be reaching for your wallet at some point. But you can easily just go through and play the game, which is probably why it's Nintendo's least profitable mobile outing.
Probably, yes. It is why it fails, Gibbon, is for all the reasons you just listed, for the reasons we lauded it 2 years ago. So you want to hear something really depressing? It became DKU. I think very nearly 2 years to the day it's getting shut down. So yeah. No, as much as we've come around, or I've come around, and some other DK Viners have come around on Mario Kart Tour, which we discussed, at great length earlier this season, Dr. Mario World, just from an introductory level, seemed to be a better fit for the mobile platform. And obviously, I was wrong.
I'd still argue it's a much better fit for the platform. It just doesn't make them a whole lot of money.
Right, and perhaps if they just charged for it at the outset, we're going to charge you this amount of money, and they don't, rely so much on the free software but microtransaction monetization scheme.
Yeah, like with Super Mario Run. But the thing is, even Super Mario Run is pulling in more income than Dr. Mario World, which is I don't know what to think about that.
Well, Dr. Mario, I think, is a much harder sell in general than something like Super Mario Run, which is basically Mario platforming, right? Everybody and their grandmother knows Mario platforming at this point, where Dr. Mario has always been a more esoteric kind of puzzle game. I mean, it's not esoteric in the it's Mr. Pants sense, which would be the true esoteric puzzle game experience, but it's never had any cultural penetration like your Tetrises have had. I mean, people know of it, especially Mario fans and Nintendo fans. They know of Dr. Mario, but I would say that Dr. Mario, when stacked against all these other options like a Mario platformer or Mario Kart or, of course, Pokemon or Animal Crossing or Fire Emblem, even at this point, it's going to be way down there.
Yeah, I'd say the last time Dr. Mario got anything even approaching mainstream attention was on, the Nintendo 64. Yeah,
I was going to say when the character got added to Melee.
Oh, yeah, right. I forget about that.
I'm not really here, though, to talk about Dr. Mario World. At least, this isn't a eulogy for the game. We're not going to get into, this is what I really loved about it, and I'm really sad that I'm not going to ever experience it ever again on November 1st. That's not what this is about. This is more about discussing, this is the first time, Gibbon, that we're looking at a Donkey Kong Universe game completely ceasing to exist. We've had some close calls over the years. And and there's always the risk with one thing or another at any given time, but this is new for us. This is a painful experience for us. This is something I have been dreading since the mid-90s, and now we're faced with it, and I am kind of in denial. I remain optimistic somehow that this is going to be reversed or somebody's going to come up with a workaround, which I'll maybe give a plea about towards the end of the episode. But, this is a completely new experience for our niche fandom and fan community. But outside of the DKU, Nintendo's certainly been more than willing to put a bullet in a game's head before. This isn't new behavior for them, and it's not that surprising. It's just, for me, I think it's discouraging because we have dodged said bullet time and again. And
we really have. I was trying to think up examples for the show notes, and we really haven't suffered that in this corner of fandom.
At least not to this extent, where we're just looking at, no absolute way to play this game in any archive state. So I thought for this episode, what we'd do is we'd look back at Nintendo examples of this phenomenon, DKU close calls that we've managed to avoid, and sort of sum it all up with Dr. Mario World's impending fate, its terminal diagnosis, if you will, and try to make some sense out of the distressing news, because I know a lot of people listening to the conversation don't care so much about Dr. Mario World. And the truth is, I don't care so much about Dr. Mario World. Like, this isn't any great stakes. Like, this isn't something like, hey, we're erasing all copies, physical and digital, of Donkey Kong Country 2. Turns out that we just can't abide those Killer Instinct references, so we're just killing the game entirely through an EMP or something, like a specifically targeted EMP. No, like, this isn't as grave as that. It's not as grave as something like this happening to Sea of Thieves or any other game that means a lot to certain segments of the community.
Though I do worry about Sea of Thieves sometime down the road.
We'll discuss Sea of Thieves, because Sea of Thieves is something that I keep coming back to in, I think, relation to this. But I think for me, Dr. Mario World, it's not so much that we're losing Dr. Mario World, it's that we are losing a piece, however small, of history, be it DKU history or Mario history.
Yeah,
and
it's more the implication of the thing.
Yeah, and it's definitely something, as I've matured, as I have taken on a greater appreciation of the people behind the scenes who work on games and the artistry that goes behind it, even towards games I'm not particularly a fan of or fond of. This is heartbreaking and discouraging to see all of this work that was put into this game gone forever. And Nintendo's workarounds for this, it just, like, they made this announcement, right? Very blasé announcement when they made it. But they said basically that, hey, we're shutting this down. Let me just read you the exact quote, because it's fuck you to anybody who really enjoyed this game. Thank you for playing the Dr. Mario World game. The Dr. Mario World game service will end on November 1st, 2021. Monday. Mondays, am I right? We would like to extend our sincere thanks to everyone who has played the game since it began service on July 10th, 2019. After the end of service, if you start up the Dr. Mario World game after the game's service has ended, an end of service notification will be displayed, and you will not be able to play the game. You will be able to look back at your play history in Dr. Mario World Memories, which is a webpage that will become available after the game's service ends. So it's basically, here's a yearbook. Here you go. Hey, you remember how many times you played this game, the puzzles you completed. That's it. And that's maybe enough for the people who actually, were able to play the game 100% and really lived and breathed it. But what about future generations? What about little Sally, a Mario fan 70 years from now, assuming civilization is still standing 70 years from now?
Nah, oceanic collapse is going to happen in like 30 years and kill us all.
She's a mer person, all right? So,
okay.
So little Sally, the mer person living in the aquatic remains of what was once the United States of America, is really into Mario and wants to play every single Mario game and is looking on Super Mario Wiki, which is waterproof, and learns of Dr. Mario World and is discouraged that this Mario game is just beyond her reach. Minus time travel, you just can't get to it. And so, yeah, it's not even so much us or those of us who played Dr. Mario World or who had a chance to play Dr. Mario World, but what about every subsequent generation who gets into Mario or Donkey Kong or wants to learn about that time Diddy Kong got his medical license and you can't relive that. You just can't. You can maybe watch YouTube videos of it, but that's not the same, is it? And that sucks. That absolutely flat out sucks. All the work that was put into this, all the team who worked on it, surely there has to be a different way of going about this than simply shutting it down. Like, you could just reconfigure it to be a standalone downloadable game that you maybe have to pay for. And then that could justify all the work that was put into it. Like, strip it of the elements that made it Dr. Mario World and just make it Dr. Mario Mobile. I mean, it's like throwing out the baby with the bathwater.
Yeah.
And before the baby mutates into a merfolk after the societal collapse.
Yeah, surprisingly, Konami is actually being better about this sort of thing. They took down one of their big mobile Castlevania title a while back, but just announced like yesterday that they've reconfigured it as a single player experience and will be putting it up on services again as a standalone, like, single purchase download.
Well, and that's wonderful to hear. That's the exact type of thing I champion, and so good on Konami for doing that. And I can just say that I am not surprised that Nintendo will not be doing that, or will never have any intention of doing that. Because when it comes to this topic, I feel like Nintendo is always going to be primed to let me down. Personally, like, maybe that's hyperbolic, but the more I've reflected on this recently and the more I've observed it, the more I realize, Nintendo doesn't care, do they?
I wouldn't go that far, but I have thoughts I'll share about that.
I'm using
later.
Nintendo as a blanket, like, corporate structure. Surely there are people at Nintendo who would love to preserve all the games, who would never want a game to become unavailable, especially to this degree. But the corporate structure of Nintendo sort of drowns that out, in my opinion. Well, let's look back at the history.
Yeah.
Let's look back at the history of Nintendo, I guess, and their dalliances with ephemeral games that sort of become ghost phantomware, cease to be. And then we'll discuss the DKU in particular and all of the very narrow calls we have had over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, this starts, but it might also start with Nintendo in a broader sense, with the Nintendo Satellaview. And for those who don't know, this was a modem add-on for the Super Famicom in Japan in the mid-90s. Very revolutionary. It kind of preceded and predicted the way gaming would be going in just under a decade. And surely where we're at now with gaming, particularly Xbox and PlayStation. But the Nintendo Satellaview didn't make it out of Japan, but I remember reading about it in Nintendo Power in like 95 or 96. I can't remember the exact year, but I was enchanted and horrified, both at the same time, at the possibility that the Satellaview represented. Because the Nintendo Satellaview, they would have what were called broadcast days. So particular day, you would sort of boot it up, and then these games would be broadcast over the satellite view, which you could then play on your Super Famicom, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so there were Zelda titles with remixed dungeons never seen anywhere else. I think a remixed version of the Super Mario Brothers, the trilogy.
Super Mario Bros. 2. There was also like a sort of a Super Mario All-Stars, like it was running on the All-Stars engine, and so you got like things like a Super Mario Bros. 3 overworld map, but it was all Super Mario Bros. 1 levels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, these were ostensibly new or unique entries in the Zelda or Mario series, even if they were just remixed. They were just there, like, broadcast into your Super Famicom, and then they were gone, you know?
Yeah.
And they never made it outside of Japan, so we never really felt that pain here in the States or anywhere else in the world. But I remember thinking, like, what if I was living in Japan? What if I was a diehard Zelda fan? How would I be feeling over this possibility that this game would just not exist anymore? I would get a taste of it, and then it would be gone. And, you know, there are people who have gone to great lengths to find and preserve the Satellaview games. You can find...
Yeah, fortunately, I think, like, a good 98% of the stuff that was broadcast has been preserved via emulation, although, unfortunately, there is some stuff that just... we haven't happened to find any saved copies of.
Although, you know, when you look at the list and you look at what has been salvaged, you know, it is pretty impressive that it is most everything. Yeah. And, of course, that is all down to the fans and gaming historians. It's not Nintendo who has, like, made this material available again, but... so I would actually put this in an almost dodged bullet category, even though you can't get it through official means. It's not lost. Yeah. You can seek it out. And, you know, my stance on emulation, it used to be very harsh. It used to be, don't do it. And of course, as I've gotten older and I've gotten less rigid in my views, I definitely understand it now. I think it's shitty to play, like, to emulate a newer game or whatever, but if the game is not being made available, if there are no feasible means with which to acquire, even stuff like, you know, N64 era, like, unfortunately, the whole practice of game collecting has kind of ruined the market for obtaining a lot of older cartridges, because it's made the prices skyrocket. And so anybody who actually wants to seek out the original cartridge or whatever for a game has to pay inexorbitant prices.
Yeah. Fortunately, there's a growing market for reproduction carts, which aren't like they're newly made carts that you can play on classic systems or those modern, like, we play retro games systems. And so if you want, like, an authentic Nintendo made this cartridge in 1990 whatever, sure, you can go spend a few $100s on eBay, or you can spend like $20 on a repro cart for something that, like, the average person won't be able to distinguish is a quote-unquote fake copy of the game.
Yeah, and I'm not wild about that, but at the same time, I understand it. And, you know, it is what it is. But especially when it comes to things like the Satellaview, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. You know, that is perfectly acceptable, because I don't want that history lost, even though there's no personal stakes in it for me, because I'm not a Zelda diehard, I'm not a Mario diehard, but still, I can definitely empathize, right? So I know how it must feel. So it's great that material has been preserved and is out there. And so that was like the first taste of it with Nintendo. But the more direct analog to what's going on with Dr. Mario World is probably Miitomo, which was the first mobile game in this iteration of mobile games since the mid-aughts, mid-teens, mid 2010s. What the hell do you call the decade?
Yeah.
It's the first one that they shut down. It's the first one that they said, you know what, this isn't working for us. Bye-bye. It's done. And when they announced it was ceasing to be, I admit I didn't pay much attention. I was like, oh, whatever. But now looking back on it, it was really a portent of doom, of an ill omen for things to come. And, you know, I don't know. Like, you can definitely see that a me-branded game would be the first on the chopping block, and then a Dr. Mario game. And it's like, the way corporate culture works, you know, you got to show continual growth, continual profits. Just it's unsustainable. And so at what point will another mobile game not be good enough? Like, yeah, it's doing better than those two that we killed, but it's still not doing what we want towards projections. Let's kill it. And for all the people who devote time and money, real money into these games, it just, it's gone. It's gone forever. And that doesn't sit right with me. But I know I'm not speaking anything new with this opinion.
Yeah.
This is just, I've kind of been outside of that bubble for a long time, and now the bubble is starting to nip at my heels, and I'm like, hey, those practices are kind of shitty.
Everyone else is like, oh, you finally come out from under your rock.
It's great being stuck in the 1990s sometimes, I have to say.
Yeah. And so, like you said, Dr. Mario World's the first, explicitly DKU thing this is happening to. As far as mobile games go, there was Croco Bongo, which, I don't know if you'd say it was a full game, and that was a title from, 2015 from, was that Fortune Fish or one of the other sort of X-Rare stuff?
No, that was the Stamper project that we actually discussed here on the Kongversation. And, you know, they look like Kremlings. And that was like, this was...
Croco Bongo looks like a fuzzy Kremling, and we're not just saying that, it's literally... Like, if you put him next to Donkey Kong, you'd be like, oh, which DK game is that from?
Yeah, and this was before K. Rool came back, so this was kind of and I definitely feel like there was a little bit of them playing to that thirst for the Kremlings. That was definitely...
very much so. It's super hard Donkey Kong Country aesthetics in that. And, that's been delisted from the App Store, but if it's on your account... or if it's still on your device, you can still play through it and stuff. It's just new people can't get at it.
Right.
And, there's probably some complicated side-loading process I'm not aware of for getting it onto an Apple device if you weren't, lucky enough to grab it at the time. But it's a pain in the ass is what it is.
Right. It's inaccessible for the layperson.
Yeah.
Yeah, so school me, Gibbon, because I am not somebody, I played Pokemon Go, you know, when it was new, and then I just got sick of it because I realized I was walking around public parks like a sheep, and I got sick.
Yeah,
I got
screw public parks. Who wants to go to those?
No, but I realized, I don't know. It got old for me, and I realized I was enamored with the principle behind the game, but I had no emotional stakes. I wasn't actually feeling anything when I got a Pokemon I was after. I was like, oh, cool, I got it, yay! But then I had to take a good hard look at my life,
and you're like, damn, I'm outside, getting healthy, playing games with the community. Fuck this! I need to get back in my cave.
Where I actually liked. Hiking, the national parks, the mountains, Pokemon Go doesn't work because it requires you to be in an actual urban populated area, and there's nothing to be found out in the wilderness I preferred, which is away from people.
Yeah, I was about to disagree in that the hiking trails around here are full of it, but I also realized Niantic's down the street. So
Try doing it in Shenandoah National Park. It doesn't work. But you're likely to see a real bear, which is kind of cool. So
we had a real bear when I was working at Microsoft. We were locked inside the buildings one day because there was a bear wandering around the campus.
That was just Banjo. Educate me, Gibbon, because I feel like I am somebody who has been in a cave for the past 10 to 15 years, and I haven't really observed, like, Candy Crush.
Yeah.
Is Candy Crush still a thing? Like,
God, I hope not. Unfortunately, probably so. So yeah, I've been kind of invested in the mobile gaming space for a while, like dating back to like flip phones or so, because at the time, when it first sort of started up, companies were treating it the same way that like the Game Boy was treated. They were putting like mobile companion games to larger things out on there. So like I've got mobile game entry, like full, I paid a decent sum of money for these full games that you can play from start to finish and are like comparable to like Game Boy or Game Boy Advance or DS games or whatever,
right,
of like Wolfenstein, God of War, Dead Space, Final Fantasy, Prince of Persia, Mega Man, Kingdom Hearts, Metal Gear Solid, Resident Evil, and there's Predator, like the list goes on and on and on. I've got probably like half a dozen phones dating back to my first flip phone over in a bin like about 5 feet from me, just to preserve those because they're just not available anymore. You can't find them on services, and that's just like the franchises that exist outside of the mobile space. Like Square has invested time and money into making mobile only franchises. They got one of the Final Fantasy teams to do an entire series on mobile called Chaos Rings, which aside from the fourth game that is numbered number 3 because this is a Square franchise. You can still go onto storefronts and buy them, but the download servers don't exist anymore. So like you can't play them if you happened to have deleted them from your phone at some point. And like I think the only way to play the older titles now is to like buy a Chinese PS Vita version of them or something. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, I paid like $20 for each of those and I can't play them anymore. What the fuck?
Yeah.
And so like, this is just a thing in the mobile space, and it's kind of discouraged me from modern day mobile gaming for the most part. Although I'm kind of getting back into it mainly with Nintendo stuff, but even then I'm not spending any money on anything because I learned my lesson. And it's like, yeah, this is just a problem in the mobile gaming sphere. It's ironically easier to preserve older phone games because they were in like Java format and people were able to rip those files from their phones relatively easily and emulate them. So there's a thriving emulator space for older phone games, but for smartphone games, it's kind of like a crapshoot whether that's possible or not.
And that kind of leads us into our next avenue of discussion here, the Donkey Kong universe and its history of what I call near game eradication. So obviously, this is never a problem when it comes to something like Donkey Kong Country or your Donkey Kong Lands, things that were available on a game cartridge. Back in the days when you just had a chunky piece of plastic that you slid into your device that plays them, simple, perfect, not complicated in any way. You have a game, you can hold it in your hand, you can take it places, put it in, and nobody can deprive you of that, unless it's through a mugging or something, right? The first time, though, we were faced with this possibility, rather than just in this hypothetical sense, like when I pondered the Saddle of You, was a little game called Donkey Kong Country Barrel Maze. And I feel like anytime I bring up Donkey Kong Country Barrel Maze, I first need to explain what Donkey Kong Country Barrel Maze is. Because when I say Donkey Kong Country Barrel Maze, I am usually met with slack-jawed reactions and confused expressions. So let me explain what Donkey Kong Country Barrel Maze is for the uninitiated. Donkey Kong Country Barrel Maze, and yes, I just like saying the full title, is a browser game developed for a website called candystand.com, which has a long storied history behind it. You can look that up yourself. By a...
Oh, we're old, aren't we?
Oh, yeah. I still have the buttocks of a supple 20-year-old, but, you know, chronologically, I'm old. Candystand.com. Be glad I'm this old, because this is how we still have this game, partially.
Oh, that's fair, yeah.
Developed by a team called Skyworks Technologies in 2003. And it required Shockwave to play. So... This wasn't uncommon for a lot of games, like predating smartphone games. There were browser games, and this is where you would get a lot of the stuff that would appeal to your mom, or, you know, like people who aren't traditional gamers so much, but they would somehow stumble upon this and they would play them. And I remember, you know, fellow students in my high school's computer lab playing games on candystand.com when they should have been like doing research or whatever.
Good old penguin bowling.
So, you know, Candystand, like I knew of Candystand even before Barrel Maze. This isn't the usual case where it takes the DKU to introduce me to something that people are already familiar with. No, my cultural awareness was already broadened thanks to just my peers in high school at the time. But Candystand, they both had original games and they had licensed games. And it was odd and unusual for Nintendo, of all entities, to license one of their properties to Candystand. And this has led to a lot of debates, not so much anymore, but I remember when the Kongversation was still dewy and fresh, where a lot of people would say, hey, I don't think Donkey Kong Country Barrel Maze is a real game. I think it was unlicensed, and I think it was a knockoff.
I think that's a common misconception, honestly, because Nintendo does a lot of stuff like that and has historically done so over the years. They had cell phone apps in Japan dating back, like there was a cell phone hookup for the Game Boy that some of the Pokemon games took advantage of, some of the Mario Golf games took advantage of, and there were sort of mobile apps for that. And like they've done a lot of branching out and app stuff. It's just rare that it comes over to the United States, is what was novel about this.
And when it does, then you have all these accusations that DK Vine is hoaxing it, or it's
to be fair, that is the sort of thing we do.
We're not pranksters so much. Like we get obsessed over minutia. We don't create like broad conspiracies. But this is a real game, actually licensed by Nintendo, rated by the ESRB and everything. Like it's on this pedestal above even the Shockwave browser games that were on Nintendo's site to promote a game. Like this game has some craft behind it.
It does.
And I think you really can't appreciate that unless you play it. And it would have been a brief window in which you could have played it had it not been for DK Vine. I'm quite proud of this, actually. So, you know, it being completely housed on a website like Candystand made us face the possibility from the outset that, hey, you know, if this left Candystand, which a lot of games did, or if Candystand shut down, which it's been through a couple iterations since then. I think it still exists in some sort of form, but it's something completely removed from what it used to be. I actually haven't looked it up in a couple years. We would have to, you know, deal with a Donkey Kong Universe game being gone forever. And not just the Donkey Kong Universe game, like where Donkey Kong or Diddy makes an appearance, like Dr. Mario World, but a Donkey Kong game. A game with Donkey Kong Country in its title. So, some of the more savvy tech wizards enlisted by the DK Vine forum quickly archived it. I think we had an emulated or whatever copy of it while it was still up. Like, it didn't take long at all, and we quickly put it on our site, just kind of squirreled it away.
From the days of really bad internet encryption where you could just kind of grab whatever you wanted.
Thank log for it. Thank the Lord of Games, because we got it. It did leave Candy Stand, and then ever since, it's been available on DK Vine. Now, granted, through the discontinuation of Shockwave and Flash and all of those things, it's become harder to play. But there are workarounds, and we are personally responsible for keeping this corner of the DKU alive.
Yeah.
And look, this is the first appearance of hippos in a Donkey Kong game. This is the first appearance of the plants that Retro established as chomp plants.
Ooh, true.
There's lots of little bits in here. This is basically, and we will be doing a spotlight episode for its 20th anniversary, believe you me. But this is basically a game that shows us how Donkey Kong gets bananas for his banana horde. It is a charming, if not hard to play, little piece of DKU history, and I adore it, and I adore that we saved it, we salvaged it.
And of course, that's not the only browser game that's DKU that was quote unquote lost but has been preserved. But it's probably the most notable one. There's stuff like the as you mentioned, Nintendo occasionally had Flash games on their own sites, and there was a Mario vs. Donkey Kong one for that, and then there was that Nuts and Bolts Lunchables tie-in browser game and stuff, and fortunately those have all been preserved and are on various Flash archive services.
And then we get into the debate, which runs rampant on things like our DKU tribunal episodes, where we try to determine what is actually a game versus a piece of marketing. And that's not a debate for this episode, Gibbon, but Donkey Kong Country Barrel Maze has always been, like I said, on a pedestal above, where it is unquestionably a game, and that is
Milo was streaming it the other day, and it's surprisingly meaty. Like, it's a full thing. It's like it's very comparable to Marble Madness in both playstyle and scope.
Yeah,
if people are familiar with that.
One of the best feelings was when I finally beat it.
Ooh.
I think in 2010. Because I did a slush fund on the forum about it, and it was just because I'd always been terrible at it, just absolutely terrible. But I committed, and I got good, and good enough to clear it, at least clear all 9 levels. So, or I think it was 9, maybe 10, 9 sounds right.
Something like that.
Anyway, Donkey Kong Country Barrel Maze, you can still download it on DK Vine. We have a game page for it. You just have to, figure out how to get Shockwave working, but then you're good to go. So that was the first instance, but then there was, hey, we're back to discussing mobile games, and specifically the mobile games you were alluding to. There were 3 mobile games that came out in the mid-aughts, the real aughts, not the 2010s that I mistakenly referred to as the aughts earlier on this episode.
Yeah.
Banjo-Kazooie, Grunty's Revenge Mobile, It's Mr. Pants Mobile Edition, and Banjo-Kazooie, Grunty's Revenge Missions, which is often mistaken as Banjo-Kazooie, Grunty's Revenge Mobile, but they're actually different games.
And as a writer, I want to mention the Saber GBA Mobile Edition.
Yes. But these were Infusio's flip phone mobile, I guess, ports, but sort of remakes. Basically, they were like, I've always likened them to the Game Boy versions, but in this case, Game Boy versions of Game Boy games, like the downgraded version of a pre-existing game.
Donkey Kong Land 2.
Yeah, Donkey Kong Land 2, if somebody made a Donkey Kong Land 2 for Donkey Kong Land 2.
Land 2, yeah.
These were a first, really, for us. Infusio made a deal with Rare and Microsoft to put their THQ-published Game Boy Advance output, Sans Banjo Pilot, on mobile platforms. And in my experience, they were virtually impossible to find in the wild in the days that they were actually live as like mobile games properly. Because
this was you think platform exclusivity is bad these days. It was ridiculous back in the flip phone era.
Yeah, because it depended on your carrier, right? Like
it depended on your carrier and model of phone. So like even just going to different models of flip phone on the same carrier, I had access to completely different game library.
Yeah, and there was no, like, I tried to research this, like, how can I play Banjo-Kazooie Granny's Revenge Mobile? And the only information you would get is it's available in mobile. What? So, I kid you not, I actually went searching for a new phone just to be able to get these. And you can't just...
You were talking to someone who vigorously researched which phone models would have the best game libraries, so...
Okay, but
you're preaching to the choir on this one.
Okay, that's one thing, Gibbon. This is a different level of... I was going to say insanity, but I guess inanity would be the better term. This was like, you can't just go to people at Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile or whatever and say, hey, I want to play It's Mr. Pants Mobile Edition. And that's the only reason I'm here to sign a contract and get a new flip phone. Please tell me how I can play It's Mr. Pants Mobile Edition. Because they won't know. And nobody knew. And it was, it got to the point where I was questioning whether they were even available in the US. I tried, and I had actually sit downs with people
oh, wow.
at these phone places. And
okay, slightly more dedicated than me.
And they just kind of stared at me like I was some sort of extraterrestrial coming down to Earth. And I felt awkward, and so we walked away with no contract signed and no phone because they couldn't give me the answers I was seeking. They were trying to sell me on, like, the benefits that normal people would inquire about a phone. I just wanted my 3 DKU games on my phone.
I can't really fault you on that, since for a long time my phone purchases were based on whether I'd be able to play the latest Alien vs. Predator mobile game on them or not.
Yeah, and so I feel like for the younger listeners out there who, everything's available on the App Store or, Android, and that's it. Like, you've basically got this universal breakdown of all of these games and pieces of software. We didn't have that back in the days where people used the phones from Breaking Bad, then break, and throw in the trash because they're just burner phones at this point. No, like we didn't have that. So it was the Wild West. You didn't know what you were getting when it came to games. Games were just kind of a cute little bonus. They weren't a main selling point until smartphones. So, anyway, long story short, I never got to play them on like actual mobile. And at that point, at a certain point, I didn't really care because I kind of drifted away from the DKU for a time. This is when I was pursuing screenwriting and everything. And so I had, in my mind, a bigger fish to fry at that point. But when I came back to DK Vine properly from LA and really kind of dedicated myself to Donkey Kong journalism, I then found that, hey, luckily people preserved all 3. They're all available, readily available to download online. And I've got hard copies of them now saved and everything. So
Yep.
it's, it's fine. And I actually quite enjoyed Grunny's Revenge mobile, particularly. I thought it was like really fun, and it was different from Grunny's Revenge on the Game Boy Advance. It has
Yeah, it was interesting seeing how they cut down or sort of, I don't know what the correct word would. They refactored some areas to make them work on mobile, and it was interesting to see those design changes.
Yeah, so it was fun, and the way you play it on, you can play it on your computer, but you've got this little like replica of a Nokia phone from the era, and so you still get a little bit of a taste of the way it used to be. But yeah, I mean, those games are saved, thankfully, and that is also down to the fans. But that is like the scary era of mobile for me, because not only was this this threat of you're going to lose these games forever, it's can you even find the games to begin with? So it was like a race against time just to get a phone. But thankfully that's all been averted thanks to the diligence of amateur game preservationists. But that brings us closer to the modern era, up to the Xbox One, with a game called Project Spark.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, but it lives on, because even though it was shut down by then Microsoft Studios, you can still play it locally if you have a game disc. And, you do lose the whole, I'm going to get other people to try out my created games aspect of it. That, what's the PlayStation game, Dreams?
Sure, I think.
Yeah. No, it's Dreams, because I make the joke about Project Dream all the time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But, that's actually, I think, quite popular. I assume it's popular. And it's a shame they didn't stick with Project Spark, because there was the same principle.
Yeah, we've talked about that in depth on various other episodes. But it is really a shame that Project Spark got shut down the way it did.
But you can still make a game. You can just only play it from home. You can't share it online, and you can still play Conker's Big Reunion. So it's not like it's lost. It just certain functionalities of it are lost.
And you can still play as Conker in the Voidstorm adventures, but because there's no server connection, you can't level up any of those characters, so you can't see Conker's repertoire of increasingly absurd attacks and whatnot as he levels up.
Yeah.
Which isn't a thing in Big Reunion, so if you're only playing it for Big Reunion, that's fine, but if you want to see the full array of Conker content, you're a little SOL. But you get most of it. Yeah,
so not really lost, and it's a workaround. As to the same kind of workaround, I'm kind of hoping comes about somehow for Dr. Mario World. But the truth is, in my opinion, we might argue about this, Gibbon, I just don't think Nintendo cares all that much.
Yeah, so that, speaking of Nintendo, there's a bunch of stuff that's still available, but won't be in the near future. And that's getting into the discussion of their virtual consoles and their eShop titles, because they have a lot of eShop only titles on older, I guess I say older, I feel old saying they're older systems, like Wii U and 3DS and DS eShops, a couple of the Mario vs. Donkey Kong titles, or DKU adjacent stuff like Dylan's Rolling Western, which is made by Tanabe and has a bunch of DK callouts and whatnot in it.
Although I think the biggest reason people associate that game with the Donkey Kong universe is because of the Kevin Callahan rumor that Dylan was going to appear in Diddy Kong Racing for the Wii U.
I think it's because one of the main antagonists in the first game is King Ron, affectionately called Ronnie Kong, a big scar-faced gorilla with a red tie who antagonizes the main characters and throws out wind-up TNT barrels at you during his boss fight.
A little bit of your thing, a little bit of my thing.
And makes a bunch of Kremling puns. But yeah, so those are still available for now, but like outside of people grabbing ROM images off of their 3DSs, like those won't be available once the eShops go down. And like that sort of brings us to the broader discussion of Nintendo. And yeah, I'll let you say your piece, and then I'll say my piece.
All right. So for me, as hard as it is to understand or hear or process, I don't think Nintendo's ever really cared about this stuff, because they just ploy nostalgia all the time, but they do it in a sort of very targeted sense. It's always nostalgia designed to help them sell a current product. It's why they, for example, just now ignored Donkey Kong's 40th anniversary this summer, yet acknowledged Metroid's 35th anniversary. It's because they've got a Metroid game to sell in October. And that's it. I mean, it's why there's no dedicated virtual console for the Switch. You know, they'll have like those monthly updates for the Nintendo Online service where, now we've got 3 Super Nintendo games coming this month. But there's no real continuity with the eShop of old, the virtual console on the Wii or the Wii U or the 3DS. And there's never been that system-to-system ownership of your digital titles, your digital game libraries. Nothing like that. You get the one-offs designed to remonetize old games, but nothing in the way of continuous preservation of the actual history. And in my opinion, that's a damn shame, because that is the way I feel like the industry has been trending for a while, especially when you look at how Xbox is starting to do it, has been doing it in the last half decade or more, under Phil Spencer's leadership. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But it is, I think, heading in the right direction.
I don't know. I think it's a matter of different approaches and I guess different priorities. Because, like, yeah, I'll applaud Xbox's virtual console showing, which I refuse to call backwards compatibility because it's not really, and that's a misnomer. But, like, so my personal game library of Xbox titles, I have a lot of the quote-unquote mainstream stuff like Halo and the rare games and whatnot, and of course those are compatible with this service and are available and can be played on the current systems, and nobody bats an eye going, well, of course those are there. But, like, I also own a lot of niche titles that, like, have never been compatible with these services, so I still have to, like, dig out the original Xbox or 360 or what have you if I want to play them. So, like, I've got mixed feelings on people going, oh, look, you can play all of your Xbox titles on the Series X and it's just your one-stop shop. And I'm like, it's not. Like, I think for half of my stuff, I still need to bring out the original console.
Well, when you say niche titles, are you referring to third-party stuff, or...
Yeah, it's third-party stuff. And like,
yeah, and that, like, it'd be great if all of that, was there, but, when you're looking at the first-party stuff, which ostensibly my argument about Dr. Mario World is a first-party title. So, I mean, I would love if we were going that deep into the weeds when it came to having all your games be playable. But yeah. I'm asking for a bare minimum, the company that puts out the service to preserve their own titles.
Okay, that's fair. But, like, over on the Nintendo side of things, I know people advocate a lot for, like, hey, just let us buy it once and own it. But, like, Microsoft is kind of new in that respect, in that they're like the only ones who do that. Everybody else makes you pay for stuff again, and I think it's only relatively recently that you haven't been able to play older stuff on your newer Nintendo consoles. Because, like, if you look at their handheld output, you were able to play, like, original Game Boy games up through like the DS. Like, that's several generations back. Like, they were actually really good about that, and Nintendo's usually pretty good about porting over or re-releasing older first-party titles and their historical virtual console libraries across like the past 15 years or so. We're like, look, here's every mainstream first-party title that anybody could ever want. And even on Nintendo Switch Online, they've been steadily rolling out their first-party titles. I think there's only really, like, on the NES and SNES, which are the only things on Nintendo Switch Online at the moment, there's only, like, you can count on one hand the number of major first-party games that people are still kind of nagging about. But at the same time, they're also doing a really good job of getting, like, niche titles people may not have been exposed to or didn't have an opportunity to play. And I know a lot of people who have been really happy with Nintendo Switch Online because, like, they've maybe never heard of some of these RPGs or puzzle games or platformers before and are experiencing them for the first time and wouldn't have had that opportunity otherwise. So, like, I don't know. At the same time, the same people who are like, why don't you just release X on Nintendo Switch Online or have Virtual Console? Like, they complain about all the ports and remasters that the Switch is getting. So I don't know. I think people just like to complain personally.
Well, and also I look at something like Nintendo Switch Online and it might be great, but it's also apparent to me that once we get a new console, eventually Nintendo Switch Online is going to be discontinued and all of that stuff on there you won't be able to access anyway. It's
Game Pass, like, that's not any different.
okay, yeah, I know, but everything on Game Pass too, or most things on Game Pass, are you can get a hard copy of.
I mean, you can get a hard copy of all the stuff on Nintendo Switch Online.
Okay, but I mean, then we're getting back to the point of having to hunt down old cartridges, or...
I mean, that's gonna be the case for the stuff on Game Pass too, though. Game Pass is just more recent stuff.
Right, but you can also purchase a lot of the games on Game Pass, and then you have them on your console.
Yeah, but, like, I think us oldies just need to kind of face that the video game industry is moving towards digital only.
Yeah, but that's why game preservation is more important than ever, if that's the case.
Oh, I agree. It's just that, like, more and more, even with quote-unquote big titles, you're seeing the physical releases done by places like Limited Run or those sorts of places that sort of do print-on-demand physical copies of games.
And that's the same way, or trending the same way with things like the music industry, and, you get physical media in general, Blu-ray, DVD, whatever. Mm-hmm. There will always be a market, I think, or at least there will be for a couple generations into the future, a market for physical media, because people like to collect. People like a tangible product in their hands.
Yep. People like me, and that's why I need more bookshelves.
Cinemaphiles, for example, love the Criterion collection, right? And they will want the Blu-ray version of all of these art house movies, renowned films from the history of cinema. And it's the same way with gaming. But where we look at things like music and movies and literature, there's always been this movement to preserve the history of all of those, right? And gaming it's either too new or it's too long associated with, that's just a childhood fancy, it's a passing thing, and the artistic merit behind it has been overlooked until recent years. And so the movement to preserve game history, I think, is still a relatively young and dewy thing with the buttocks of a 20-year-old.
Yeah, but it's gaining steam. Like, the Internet Archive is making an active effort to preserve stuff, and, like, you can go and play a lot of older games on the Internet Archive just straight from their site, and they have, like, laws protecting that preservation and emulation in the name of history and archivalship. So That's a good sign for things to come.
Yeah, and we've been lucky as far as DK Vine goes, because most
True.
of the stuff, like this Dr. Mario World, is the first time we've really had to face the threat of one of the certified DKU games being blinked out of existence. And it's because, the DKU is, you've been saying mainstream, and I think as weird
for all the it's another damn Donkey Kong game journos out there, whether they like it or not, DKU games are pretty mainstream. Like, everybody's heard of them. A lot of people play them. Like, a new Donkey Kong game is never going to not sell well or bring in money.
Yeah, even something like Grab by the Ghoulies, which is considered incredibly niche, that was still made by the Banjo-Kazooie team at Rare, and is owned by Xbox and has that backing behind it, So, we have been lucky, and the few times where we have been unlucky, we've had workarounds, and it's not up until now that there might not be a workaround for this, because, as you said, it's far harder to save smartphone games than it was the old Java days, where we could have It's Mr. Pants mobile edition, and some forward-thinking saint said, hey, It's Mr. Pants mobile edition is a game worth preserving. And it is, because it is all the joy of It's Mr. Pants shrunk down and put in your pocket, but deeper in your pocket than the Game Boy would fit. You mentioned Sea of Thieves, and Sea of Thieves has been what has been kind of rolling over in my mind since this news broke, because there's always been the possibility, right? Sea of Thieves is a game that exists on servers. And what happens one day where Sea of Thieves is deemed not profitable enough to keep the servers going? Will that be the end of Sea of Thieves? Now, thankfully, this isn't something we have to worry about anytime soon, because Sea of Thieves is...
Yeah, we really don't.
I don't know if the DK Vine, the Kongversation crowd, they really understand how huge Sea of Thieves is.
Hey, hard truth, haters. It's doing gangbusters. It's not going anywhere.
Sea of Thieves is the most successful Rare game, maybe of all time. Yep. Yeah.
Period. End of sentence.
I mean, I know it's hard for those who don't like the game to hear, for those who are holding out hope that Sea of Thieves is going to fail, so they'll just have to make another Conquer game or whatever.
Yep.
But
no matter how many times you claim there's no content to do, the fact that it's still like in the top 5 on Steam.
Yeah.
And then it came out on Steam a couple years after its initial launch. And just
So this has happened to me a couple times. I have been stuck in traffic, and I'll see a car with a Sea of Thieves bumper sticker. And I'm just like, what? Because it's weird. It's weird. I mean, it would be like me driving around in 2005 and seeing Mr. Ribs from Ghoulies on somebody's truck or whatever, And I would be like, whoa, my internet world is colliding with my real world. But, I mean, that's how huge Sea of Thieves is, and there's some cognitive dissonance for me that Sea of Thieves really is that big. And, especially it came from such humble beginnings, to the point where I was in the E3 2016 trailer, but now look at it. It's a behemoth even, and it is a pillar of Xbox. And because it's a pillar of Xbox, we have nothing to fear. But there's always the possibility that
for now,
one day the game, because we've seen it happen with other online games, right? Like, it's doing huge, and then for whatever reason, couple wrong moves, and then people just stop playing it, people banning it, and then eventually the game just dies. I'm thinking, there's a Star Wars MMO, Star Wars Galaxy, And it happened to that. Everybody became a Jedi, and then the game was just unplayable trash. And then people stopped playing it. And now there's the Old Republic, the Star Wars MMO, that I think is still doing all right for itself, despite not being canon anymore. Like, it's been going on for so long.
They've waffled on explicitly saying whether Old Republic is canon or not because it's still raking in
right,
money.
but
they don't.
That's how old
people.
The game is that Star Wars had an expanded universe reboot in the time since, like, it was bought by Disney and rebooted in the time since it's been up and running. But before that, there was Star Wars Galaxy, and it's weird to think that a Star Wars product would cease to exist and be
With Star Wars Galaxies, though, there was a massive outcry when it did actually get shut down, and it lived on through private servers for a really long time, and might actually still be doing so.
It still is, because I did a little research before this episode, Gibbon. I did my homework.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I went snooping into corners I don't normally snoop in, and... Yeah.
Oh, man. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. We should get you a juice box.
I feel like Sea of Thieves is big enough. Well, what kind of juice box? Because if it's one of those Capri Sun bags... I
said box, not bag.
Okay, because I don't like those Capri Sun bags, because you get to the point where you're just trying to get the last little bit of juice, and it leaves this unpleasant sensation in your mouth. You know what I'm talking about? Where you're trying to, like, suck it out of the bag, and you're like, and then you start thinking, is this what drinking out of a blood bag is like? And then you're like, why am I thinking about drinking out of a blood bag?
I was just thinking about that.
And then you get repulsed by your Capri Sun.
No, I was thinking of, like, the high C boxes.
It just makes me think about when Ecto Cooler would turn my poop green. But it does take me back to the days where the only thing I had to worry about was, don't better not lose my cartridge, because that's my video game. No, but Sea of Thieves, I think Sea of Thieves is big enough, and I think it has enough backing, both from the corporate structure and at Rare, and enough enterprising fans out there, that if Sea of Thieves ever did, quote unquote, shut down, or they moved to, like, Sea of Thieves 2 or whatever, the original game would exist on private servers. I have no doubt about that.
We can only hope. The people at Rare seem really chill, and I could totally see them being at some point in the future like, hey, we're sunsetting the game, but we're going to give out, like, server architecture downloads so that people can still play it, like, over LAN or whatever if they want to.
I absolutely think that would be the case, and I'm not just, like, white knighting Rare. I definitely think that, one, too many people at Rare love the game and wouldn't want to see all their hard work, like, lost to time. And so I think it would definitely be a decision made with a lot more care and concern for the fans than this Dr. Mario World announcement, where, like, it's basically like, tough titties, deal with it. You know, game over, game over, man. Literally, it's done. But don't worry, you can look at your Cameron, who's in the live stream right now, likened it to an obituary that you can look up, and that's essentially what it is. Hey, the game's dying, but don't worry, it's gonna get a nice obit. You'll be able to read that anytime you want. It's kind of sick, in my opinion. And yeah, I don't know why I'm so agitated about this, but I do think it's a way that I have evolved over the last couple years, where even if it's a game I don't really like the last episode, David and I were discussing Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, Tokyo 2020, and don't really care for it, Gibbon, but I recognize that people worked on it, and I recognize, artistry behind it, and I respect that, and I don't want the hard work of all of these people to be lost, and I don't want fans to be deprived of seeing what they did. I want it to be accessible for all of time, and I don't know, maybe that is just too pie in the sky, hippy dippy altruistic way of thinking, but yeah, I really hope somebody comes up with a workaround for Dr. Mario World, because come November 1st, it's going to be lost forever, and for the first time, a piece, however small, of the DKU will just cease to be, with no workarounds.
So like Konami coming around on preservation of their own games and re-releasing a lot of their old stuff in collections, and previously unavailable like Famicom stuff on modern systems, and even bringing back some of their taken down mobile games in more accessible formats, makes, like, if Konami can turn things around, I'm hopeful that maybe Nintendo will start doing the same thing, and maybe we'll see like Dr. Mario World standalone edition on the Wii eShop or the Switch eShop or something, which would be cool. But yeah, I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, what has Nintendo ever really followed anybody's lead on stuff like this?
Nintendo does its own thing, really. Like, even in the scope of the video game industry, they're kind of off in their corner doing their own thing. And, like, granted, a lot of times it's something that the rest of the industry will look over and be like, oh shit, that's a good idea, write that down. But at the same time, they're way ahead of their time in some respects, but in others, they're just so far behind it. So
yeah, I mean, the old saying, Sega does what Nintendo don't. It's really, now Xbox and Konami and everybody else does what Nintendo, thankfully. But yeah, I don't know. I guess there's no easy answer for this, but I'm hopeful some enterprising fan out there will somehow, even if it's from within Nintendo itself, a little bit of corporate espionage, is able to smuggle it out. I don't know.
Yeah, like, I think the easiest solution logistically would to just be like to release the server architecture or do a fake server ping or something. It depends on how the game's stored on your phone. If all the data's there and it just needs like a server check-in, you might be able to spoof that to get it to think the server said it's okay to access the content and play the game. But you'd still lose a decent chunk of functionality like multiplayer and stuff. But you'd still be able to go through like the single player stuff maybe. But if it's not set up that way and you actually like have to download each thing as you go through it, then yeah, we might just be SOL.
Right. And I'd be fine with just the single player being preserved, honestly. Like that would be something at the very least, and it would, it would be similar to like Conquer Live and Reloaded when they shut down the servers. You couldn't play online anymore, but everything was still playable locally, so it was fine ultimately. So anyway, I'm just gonna make sure the first 2 seasons of the Kongversation are still offline. Yep, good. All right.
Yep. I thought we just started on season 3 as a joke.
This has been a File 2 production.
Qué rico.